Welcome to your ultimate pit stop, Piston Pundit. Canada has long been the engine behind North America's energy supply, pumping oil, natural gas, and critical minerals into the U.S. like high-octane fuel in a performance machine. But the road ahead is shifting. With tariffs, political gridlock, and an ever-growing demand for energy worldwide, Canada is downshifting out of its US-centric lane and accelerating towards Europe and Asia. This could rewrite the rulebook on global energy trade. Could this strategic realignment leave the US stalling at the starting line? Or will it find a way to shift gears and keep pace? Let's break down the 7 key reasons why Canada's bold move is sending shockwaves across the global energy market. Reason number 7. Breaking free. Canada aims for energy independence. For years, the U.S. has cruised on a steady flow of Canadian energy. More than 50% of America's oil imports come from its northern neighbor, along with a near-total dependence on Canadian natural gas and uranium. This tight-knit trade relationship has been a stabilizing force, keeping prices in check and ensuring energy security. But Canada is no longer content playing co-driver. Trade disputes, tariffs, and shifting global alliances have pushed it to diversify. Enter the Comprehensive Economic and Trade Agreement, CETA, a deal between Canada and the European Union that could reshape energy routes. If Canada successfully reroutes its oil, gas, and mineral exports to Europe and Asia, the U.S. might find itself with less bargaining power and fewer options in a market it once dominated. Reason number 6. The trade war misfire. U.S. tariffs backfire. Washington's attempt to protect its energy sector with tariffs is starting to feel like a misfire. The U.S. imposed a 25% tariff on Canadian goods and a 10% levy on Canadian oil, first under the Trump administration and partially upheld under Biden. The goal? Strengthen domestic energy production. The outcome? Canada is shifting alliances at full throttle. In response, Canada has fueled up new trade negotiations with the European Union and Asian markets. The EU, still reeling from energy shortages and its pivot away from Russian resources, now views Canada as a reliable and politically stable alternative. Meanwhile, Asia's hunger for natural gas aligns perfectly with Canada's LNG boom. If this trend holds, the US could be watching from the rearview mirror as its long-held energy leverage dwindles. Reason number 5. Canada's LNG boom, a new contender on the global stage. If you thought the U.S. had a firm grip on liquefied natural gas, LNG exports, think again. Canada is gearing up to be a top 5 global LNG exporter, with 6 major West Coast LNG projects in the pipeline. This expansion is set to steal market share from the U.S., which has been riding high as an LNG powerhouse in recent years. By exporting LNG straight to Asia, Canada is positioning itself as a prime energy supplier for Japan, South Korea, and China, all of whom are looking for secure and stable energy deals. The U.S. has leveraged its LNG dominance to control global pricing, but Canada's entrance into the market could force it into a high-stakes competition for buyers. The race for energy dominance just got a new contender. Before we delve deeper, do us a favor and smash that like and subscribe button. This helps us reach more auto enthusiasts just like you. Now, let's shift gears and steer towards our next point. Reason number 4. Europe's energy crisis. Canada to the rescue. Europe's energy landscape is running on fumes. The region's heavy reliance on Russian oil and gas has dwindled dramatically since 2022, with natural gas imports from Russia plummeting below 15%, down from nearly 40% before the Ukraine conflict. That's a massive gap, and Canada is ready to fill the tank. Major energy projects like the Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion and new LNG terminals on the East Coast mean Canada is revving up its export capacity to Europe. Countries like Germany have already locked in long-term deals with Canadian LNG suppliers, signaling a major shift in energy alliances. With Europe steering away from Russian energy, Canada's growing role as a strategic supplier could further weaken the U.S.'s influence over transatlantic energy trade. Reason number 3. Can the U.S. keep its energy security in check? For years, The US has leaned heavily on Canadian oil and natural gas to keep its energy sector running smoothly. In fact, Canada supplied nearly 60% of all US crude oil imports in 2023, a crucial lifeline for American refineries designed for heavy crude. But with Canada shifting gears towards Europe and Asia, that reliable pipeline might not be so secure anymore. If Canadian resources get rerouted to foreign markets, the US could face higher fuel prices, increased reliance on Middle Eastern and Venezuelan oil, and a greater risk of global energy shocks. Midwest refineries, which are heavily dependent on Canadian crude, could be hit the hardest. Without a renegotiation of trade agreements, the US may soon find itself scrambling for stable energy sources, losing ground in the ever-intensifying energy race. Reason number 2. Canada's energy expansion leaves the US in the rearview. Canada isn't just talking about change, it's building the infrastructure to make it happen. The Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion, set for completion in 2024, will nearly triple Canada's oil export capacity, providing direct routes to international markets. Meanwhile, the LNG Canada project will start shipping liquefied natural gas straight to Asia, bypassing US terminals altogether, and shaking up global energy competition. But that's not all. Canada is boosting electricity exports, with Hydro-Quebec investing in transmission lines to supply the US Northeast with clean hydropower. The Hertel-New York interconnection project is already in motion, set to power 20% of New York City's energy needs with Canadian hydroelectricity. With these strategic moves, Canada is steering itself away from a US-centric energy trade and solidifying its role as a global supplier. Reason number 1. The bigger picture. Canada's shift alters global power dynamics. Canada's energy pivot isn't just an economic move, it's a geopolitical game changer. By expanding oil, gas, and electricity exports to Europe and Asia, Canada is reshaping its economic alliances and loosening Washington's grip on North American energy dominance. Meanwhile, US energy consumption is surging, fueled by AI-driven industries, expanding data centers, and industrial growth. The Trump administration has been pushing for domestic energy production, but with Canadian exports shifting overseas, the US may be forced to rely more on OPEC nations, a risky move in a volatile global market. As Canada strengthens ties with Germany, South Korea, and Japan, its status as a global energy powerhouse grows. If Washington doesn't rethink its trade strategy, it risks losing long-term energy leverage and seeing North America's global energy influence slip away. The road ahead. Can the US keep up, or will it stall? Canada's decision to diversify its energy exports is one of the most significant shifts in global trade in decades, rivaling China's meteoric rise as an oil importer in the early 2000s. The US, once the undisputed leader in North American energy, now faces a critical moment. Fight to restore trade relations or accept a new era where Canada operates independently on the world stage. If Canada fully commits to Europe and Asia, the consequences for US energy security and market dominance could be long-lasting. The question is, will the US adapt to this shifting landscape, or will it struggle to keep pace with an evolving global energy market? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think the US will negotiate its way back in, or is this the beginning of a new energy order? And don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more deep dives into the biggest shifts in global energy and automotive markets. Thanks for watching and stay tuned, because Piston Pundit will be back with more expert takes on the latest industry moves.